Chapter 1. The Genealogy We Skip. Most readers of the New Testament learn very quickly how to skip. They skip genealogies. Long lists of names feel unnecessary to modernize. Ancient, repetitive, detached from the urgency of faith. We search for miracles, teachings, parables, and promises. We move quickly toward Bethlehem, the Sermon on the Mount, the cross, and the empty tomb. And in doing so, we quietly step over the very ground the gospel writers chose to stand on. The Gospel of Matthew does not begin with an event. It begins with a record. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. This is not background information. It is a declaration. Matthew is telling the reader, before a single miracle is performed or a single word is spoken by Jesus, how to understand everything that follows. The Messiah does not arrive in isolation. He comes carrying a history, and not a flattering one. Genealogies is theology. In the ancient world, genealogies were never neutral. They were carefully shared narratives that answered critical questions. Who belongs? Who has authority? Who is legitimate? Who has the right to rule? Kings guarded their genealogies fiercely. Priests were excluded from service if their lineage could not be proven. Bloodlines mattered because identity mattered, which makes Matthew's genealogy startling. If the goal were to establish legitimacy alone, his list could have been cleaner. Certain names could have been omitted. Certain stories could have been softened. Certain women, especially women with complicated pasts, could have been excluded entirely. Instead, Matthew does the opposite. He highlights irregularity, he preserves scandal, he names the shadows. This is not carelessness. It is intent. A story that refuses to be sanitized. The genealogy of Jesus includes people whose lives raise uncomfortable questions. A patriarch who fathers children to deception. A prostitute who betrays her city. A foreign widow from a cursed nation. A king whose greatest failure is forever remembered. To the woman he wronged. A young woman whose obedience risks public disgrace. These are not footnotes, they are placed directly in the line that leads to Christ. Matthew does not explain them. He does not defend them, he simply names them, trusting the reader to recognize the weight of what is being said. This is not the story of moral ascent. It is the story of divine persistence. Why this matters before anything else. By starting with a genealogy, Matthew anchors the entire gospel in history. Not idealized history, but real history. Faith is not presented as an escape from the past. Redemption does not erase what came before. Instead, God enters a story already marked by failure, compromise, waiting, and hope deferred. This matters because Christianity does not claim that humanity climbed its way back to God. It claims that God stepped into humanity's unfinished story. A spotless lineage would have suggested distance. A broken one suggests intimacy. Luke's confirmation. The Gospel of Luke reinforces this truth from another angle. Luke traces Jesus' lineage all the way back to Adam. Not to glorify human ancestry, but to locate Christ within the full scope of human history. Jesus is not merely Israel's Messiah. He is humanity's representative together. Matthew and Luke tell us something profound. Jesus is not embarrassed by his lineage. He does not bypass it. He does not correct it, he inherits it. The genealogy is confession. If the genealogy were written today, it would make us uncomfortable. It does not align with our instinct to present faith as tidy or respectable. It refuses to present God's work as uninterrupted success. It insists that divine faithfulness operates within human inconsistency. The genealogy confesses, but the rest of the gospel will prove grace is not theoretical. Mercy is not rushed. Redemption is not cosmetic. The cross will only make sense because the story is already heavy. An invitation, not an obstacle, for readers who feel disqualified by their past. The genealogy of Jesus speaks quietly, but clearly. You are not the first broken story God has carried forward. You are not the first outsider God has named. You are not the first waiting generation God has refused to abandon. Before Jesus heals anyone, before he teaches anyone, before he forgives anyone, Scripture shows us where he comes from. Not a spotless story, a shared one. Why we begin here. This book begins where Matthew begins because everything else depends on it. If the bloodline matters, then grace has weight. If the bloodline is broken, then mercy has credibility. If the bloodline carries failure and the cross has purpose, the genealogy is not something to skip. It is the doorway, and once you walk through it, you will never read the gospel the same way again.